Hello and welcome to another episode of Learning to Code with Moshi Wolf. This part of the series is focused on test-driven development in JavaScript. I'm using JetBrains WebStorm and I've stuck some Node.js in here and the Mocha test framework and that's it. I'm using very simple node tests with assert and if you saw my last episode, I had very few tests, was getting things working. I've done a bit of work, and then this morning I was writing some more code. I've gotten to a stage where the blackjack game needs to evaluate the hand in between actions. So the game right now will make a shoe, shuffle the shoe, do the initial deal in the correct order, player, dealer, player, dealer. It can score hands. It can test uh, for certain conditions like blackjack, or if you can split the hand, or if the hand is a bust, which will never happen on the initial deal, but it's there for later. It can check a hand for aces that are still scoring as an 11. That's going to come into play later. It can also turn that 11 score into a 1. That's the reduce ace function. And then I've set it up so now you have a hand, you have your initial hand, you can look at the hand. Deal card will deal 1 card to either the player or the dealer from the shoe, and it does it all the way I want it to do, and then you might have just gotten a peek of what we're going to do today. So yes, I decided it needs to be able to score the hand after you would say deal a card. And what other place to put that than in my already defined score hand function. I started by writing a test. I want the score hand function. It should score the hand, and then let us know, maybe report if the hand is busted. This is how I started my morning. I thought this was perfectly appropriate. We will assert that if we do this thing, we're going to score a busted hand. Busted hand. 10, 10, 10 is a good bust. It will return something. We're just going to say busted. Close that off. Run our test. Well, there's the first problem. Okay, assert hand, score hand. Run this test. We have a score hand. What you can see that it's doing here, because I haven't changed the score hand function at all, we're following the tenets of test-driven development. Write a failing test. We've written a failing test. It is scoring the hand and returning a 30, and it's comparing it with what I'm expecting to see, which is the busted, and it's not getting anything. So that means we have to go in and modify score hand. At this point, the alarm bells were not going off that I'm taking this very simple function and I'm going to start polluting it with more junk, more cruft. I'm going to ask scorehand to do more than it should do right here. If it's going to test for bust with the score that we've calculated, if that is true, it's going to return busted. And I think I could leave it here. I don't think I need to tell it what to do yet if it doesn't bust. Run the test passes. You're thinking, great, you wrote a failing test, you fixed the test, everything works, this is great. So what's the next step? Well, let's assert, let's find out what happens if the hand doesn't bust. Score hand. I think we can even we might accidentally make this pass on the first go, just because it's, in a way, it's building on what's already going on up there in the score hand, and it's going to return. The way we can make it fail immediately is we can just have it look for what we'll call it as good. It'll be a good hand. It's not busted, so it's good. I think what's going to happen is it's going to get through the the if here in the score hand. It's not busted, so it's going to fall through to return the score. So this should return a failure. It should say 20 equals good as a failure. That's my guess. There it is. 20 is equal to good. Obviously, that's not true. If we wanted to make this a passing test, simply we would actually fix the test. Because in this case, if you're thinking about it, you score the hand. If it's busted, you want to know if it's busted. If not, all you want is the score. So we would go back to the score hand. We would change good to the actual score we should expect. This should pass. Great. This is a pitfall. I've made a mistake here, and I realized it when I started thinking about the next step. What do I do if it's busted? Well, I would go down in here, and I would get inside my if statement, and I would do some more stuff using the test for unreduced aces and reducing the aces and returning and cycling through the score. And this is too much for score hand to handle. All I want score hand to do is score this. And I started thinking about this when I started figuring out how am I going to write these tests inside score hand. The next one, it should find out, I would probably end up going here. It should check a busted hand for unreduced aces. This is getting complicated. Well, how would I even check this? What would I do? I would have to get in here and I would have to assert. At this point, I realized what I was doing wrong, and I decided I should fix it. So I blew out these tests. I don't need that. Went back to score hand. I fixed all this. I ran my test to make sure that it's good. Okay, we're back to where we were. What I really need to do is right here. I really need to write some tests, or a test anyways, that's going to take a new function. So we're going to look for, I'm going to leave this one for now. We're going to write one test. Describe evaluate hand. It should score the hand and decide if the hand is busted. I'm going to assert that, and when I first started writing this, I actually screwed up. I started putting all the score hand test for bust right in here, and I realized that no, I need to check for an evaluate hand function, and to make sure the evaluate hand function is doing what I wanted to do with the parameter I wanted to do. So I wrote this test: assert equal if you take a hand that is 3/10 and you evaluate it. At this point, what you'll get is a true. It's not as descriptive as it should be, but it works for now. We'll run the test. This should fail because evaluate hand is not defined. You may notice evaluate hand is actually defined. I did this and then undid it so I could make this video, but what we'll do is pretend. We'll pretend for a moment. I've just written the function evaluate hand. It takes a hand. Right now it does nothing. This is test-driven development. Write a failing test. Write the code. Let's see what it does. It fails. Now it finds evaluate hand. It runs evaluate hand. But evaluate hand doesn't do anything. It does not return a true. And so what we'll do here is write the code. We're going to return the value of testing for bust on a score hand with the score built from the score hand using the hand that we're passing in. We're passing in 3/10. So what this is going to do is go to score hand. It's going to build the score and return it. So it's going to pass a 30 into test for bust. Test for bust is right here. Test for bust returns a true if the score is over 30 and a false if it's, a true if the score is over 21 and a false otherwise. So if the score is 21 or less, it will return a false. This is it. That's the simplest code. It's not, in the long run, this isn't what the code's going to look like, but this is test-driven development. You write the simplest code to make the test pass. It passes because everything falls through exactly how we said. You take a 30, you score it for 30, you check if it's over 21. It is over 21, it returns a true. If we want to check a passing hand, or a not busting hand anyways, we do this. We're going to look for 2/10, making a false. It's not a busted hand. So this should also pass. And there you go. So what happened is I used testing to drive my development, to design my program in a way that it started getting complicated. And when I realized that it was complicated, I reevaluated my decisions, and I came to the conclusion that I like scorehand exactly how it is. I don't need scorehand to do anything other than scorehand. What I needed was a new function that would utilize the pieces I've built so far. So this isn't the final form of evaluate hand. Evaluate hand will probably end up being one of the biggest functions in the game. It's going to be the biggest function so far for sure. I'm going to keep building it. To outline what I'm going to do is I'm going to test for bust. If the hand busts, I'm going to start using these other things. I'm going to look through test for unreduced aces. I'm going to use this to look through the hand and tell me if there's any aces that are still scoring 11. In a blackjack game, it would be a soft bust, and I want to see if you can turn that into a passing score. So I'm going to check for unreduced aces. If there aren't any, the hand is a bust. It's over. If there are, then what I'm going to do is reduce the ace, and then test the score again. This will all end up down here in evaluate hand. Test for unreduced aces, reduce the ace, check the score again, and do it all over again. Now it should never be a bust again, but I'm going to let the test decide that. And run through the whole list of things and eventually pass back either the fact that the hand is busted or the score of the hand and move the game forward from there. At which point, the player would be able to take another card or stand basically and let the dealer go to work. And that's where evaluate hand is going to end up. But for now, I just wanted to show you, kind of how testing can inform your decisions and how it can make your program better. At least what I think is better. Keep it simpler and not allow you to kind of screw yourself up by blowing up functions into these catch-alls. So I hope that's useful. If you have any questions or comments, if I've done anything incredibly stupid or incredibly smart, please feel free to let me know. And thanks for watching.